I walked into my parents' house expecting a family Thanksgiving. What I heard instead destroyed 30 years of trying to be the good daughter. My name is Jessica, and I'm 34 years old, with 2 beautiful children, Emma, who's 8, and Noah, who's 6. For as long as I can remember, I've been the daughter who tries harder, who gives more, who bends over backwards to make everyone happy. While my older brother Michael gets praised for simply showing up, I've spent my entire life fighting for scraps of approval that never seemed to come. It all started when I was 7 years old. I remember the exact moment I realised I wasn't the favourite child. It was my birthday party. Well, it was supposed to be my birthday party. I had been excited for weeks, picking out decorations with Mom, planning games with my friends. But the morning of my party, Michael called. He was 12 then, and had gotten into some trouble at school. He needed Mom and Dad to come pick him up immediately and meet with the principal. "Honey, we have to postpone your party," Mom said, already grabbing her keys. "Michael needs us right now." "But all my friends are coming," I whispered, watching her rush around the house. "We'll reschedule, sweetie. Michael's situation is more important." More important. Those words echoed in my 7-year-old mind as I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by balloons and streamers that suddenly felt like decorations for a funeral. My friends' parents called one by one, confused about the sudden cancellation. I had to explain that my family had an emergency, though I was learning that Michael's problems always qualified as emergencies, while my needs were just inconvenient. That pattern followed me through childhood like a shadow I couldn't shake. When I got the lead in my middle school play, the night of the performance was the same night Michael had his first college interview. Guess which event my parents attended? When I graduated valedictorian from high school, Mum spent the entire ceremony on the phone with Michael because he was stressed about his finals. But the moment that really broke something inside me happened when I was 19. I had gotten violently ill with what turned out to be appendicitis. The pain was excruciating, and I was rushed to the emergency room at 2 a.m. I called my parents from the hospital, terrified and alone, begging them to come. "Oh, honey, we can't," Mum said through the phone. "Michael's girlfriend just had her baby and we're at the hospital with them. Can't you call a friend?" I was having emergency surgery and they were cooing over my brother's girlfriend's baby. That night, lying in a hospital bed with fresh surgical stitches, I made myself a promise. I would try even harder to be the daughter they wanted. I would prove my worth through actions, through sacrifice, through being indispensable, and that's exactly what I became. Indispensable financially, but apparently dispensable emotionally. After I got married to Mark and had Emma and Noah, I thought things might change. I thought becoming a grandmother might soften my mother's heart toward me. And in some ways it did. She loved my children. But she loved Michael's children more, and she never hesitated to let me know it. Michael had 3 kids with his wife Sarah, twins Jackson and Jordan, who are 10, and little Lily, who's 7. Beautiful children, don't get me wrong. But the difference in how my parents treated my kids versus his was like watching someone choose between gold and copper. When Emma learned to ride a bike, I called my parents excitedly to share the news. "That's nice, dear," Mum said absently. "Oh, did you hear? Jackson scored 3 goals in his soccer game." When Noah won the science fair at school, I brought the trophy over to show them. Dad glanced at it and said, "Reminds me of when Jordan built that volcano. Now that was impressive." Every achievement my children made was somehow smaller, less significant, less worthy of celebration than anything Michael's kids did. But I kept trying. I kept hoping. I kept believing that if I just did more, gave more, proved myself more, things would change. And I did give more. So much more. 3 months ago, Dad had a health scare. His blood pressure medication was expensive and his insurance didn't cover the full cost. Without hesitation, I started sending $200 a month to help with his prescriptions. When their air conditioning broke in the middle of summer, I paid for the $1,500 repair. When Mum's car needed new tyres, another $400 from my account. Month after month, I sent money, sometimes $600, sometimes $800, sometimes more, because I told myself this was how you showed love. This was how you proved you were a good daughter. Michael never offered to help with any of these expenses. He was saving for his kids' college funds and had his own mortgage to worry about. But somehow, my financial contributions were just expected, never acknowledged, never appreciated. The breaking point came 2 weeks ago when I called to ask about Thanksgiving plans, just like I had every year for the past decade. "Hi, Mom, it's Jessica. I wanted to check about Thursday. What time should we come over for Thanksgiving?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. The kind of pause that makes your stomach drop before you even know why. "Oh, honey," Mum said, and I could hear the careful tone she used when she was about to deliver bad news she didn't want to deal with. "I'm sorry, but we just don't have space this year." "Don't have space?" I repeated, confused. Our family Thanksgiving had always been at their house. They had a large dining room, plenty of seating. "Mom, we're only 4 people. Emma, Noah, Mark and me." "I know, sweetie, but Michael's whole family is coming, and with his 3 kids and Sarah's parents visiting, it's just going to be too crowded." I felt something cold settle in my chest. So Michael's family gets to come, but mine doesn't. "It's not like that, Jessica. You know how it is with the kids. Michael's children get so excited about these family gatherings, and we want to make sure they have enough space to be comfortable." "And my children don't get excited? They don't deserve to be comfortable at their grandparents' house?" Another pause. Then Mom said the words that would replay in my mind for weeks to come. "Jessica, we love those children more. Michael's kids are just easier. They're more fun to be around. Emma and Noah are sweet, but they're so quiet and serious. They don't bring the same energy." The phone felt like it was going to slip from my trembling hand. "You love those children more," I repeated quietly. "Don't take it the wrong way, honey. It's just that Jackson and Jordan and Lily, they light up the room. They're more, more engaging. And with Sarah's parents coming too, we really need to focus on making sure Michael's family has a good time." I hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in my kitchen for 20 minutes, staring at the wall, trying to process what had just happened. My mother had just told me, in plain English, that she loved my brother's children more than mine. That my children, my sweet, thoughtful, brilliant children, weren't worth making room for at the family table. Mark found me there when he came home from work. "Jess, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I told him everything, about the phone call, about Mom's words, about years and years of being treated like the backup family. Mark's face grew darker with each detail. "That's it," he said when I finished. "We're done." "What do you mean?" "I mean, we're done being treated like second-class citizens in your own family. Do you know how much money you send them every month? Do you know how many times I've watched you cry because they chose Michael over you again?" I did know. Deep down I had always known. But hearing it out loud felt like someone had finally turned on a light in a room I'd been stumbling through in the dark for decades. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I called my best friend Sarah. Yes, we have the same name as Michael's wife, which has led to some awkward moments over the years. Sarah and I met in law school, and she's been my voice of reason for over a decade. "Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Always. What's going on?" I told her about the Thanksgiving call, about everything that had been building up for years. When I finished, there was silence on her end for a long moment. "Jessica," she said finally, "as your friend and as someone who loves you, I have to tell you something you probably don't want to hear." Go ahead. You've been enabling this treatment for years. Every time you send money, every time you accept being treated as less than, every time you come back for more punishment, you're teaching them that this behavior is acceptable. Her words hit me like a physical blow, but I knew she was right. You deserve to be valued, not just used, she continued. Your children deserve grandparents who see them as equals to their cousins, and honestly, it's time to stop funding your own emotional abuse. Emotional abuse. I had never thought of it in those terms, but that's exactly what it was. Financial abuse, too. I was paying for the privilege of being treated as less than human by my own family. What should I do? I asked. Stop. Just stop. Stop sending money. Stop begging for scraps of approval. Stop teaching your children that this is what love looks like. You have a beautiful family with Mark and the kids. Start putting your energy there. The next morning, I sat down with my bank statements. The numbers were staggering. Over the past 5 years, I had sent my parents $48,000. $48,000. Medical bills, car repairs, home maintenance, monthly stipends. It was all there in black and white, $48,000, and they couldn't make room for my children at Thanksgiving dinner. I logged into my online banking and cancelled the automatic transfer that sent $800 to my parents every month. Then I called their insurance company and removed myself as the payer on their supplemental health plan. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. But I also felt terrified. What if they really did stop loving me completely? What if this was the final straw that severed our relationship forever? Then I looked at Emma and Noah playing quietly in the living room, and I realized something important. I was more afraid of my children learning to accept this treatment than I was of losing parents who had never really valued me anyway. It was time to teach my children what they deserved, a family that celebrated them, that made room for them, that loved them unconditionally, even if that family didn't include their grandparents. The real test would come in 3 weeks, when those automatic payments stopped hitting my parents' account, when the insurance premiums weren't paid, when they realized that their financial safety net, the one they'd taken for granted while excluding my children from family gatherings, was gone. I had no idea how they would react, but for the first time in my adult life, I was ready to find out who my parents really were when they couldn't use me anymore. 3 weeks. That's how long it took for my parents to realize their financial lifeline had been cut. I was folding laundry in my bedroom when my phone rang on a Tuesday afternoon. Dad's name flashed on the screen, and my stomach immediately clenched. He never called during the day unless something was wrong. Jessica? His voice sounded strained, almost panicked. Honey, we have a problem. What's wrong, Dad? The money, the monthly transfer, it didn't come through this month. And Mum got a letter saying our supplemental insurance was cancelled. There must be some kind of banking error. I set down the shirt I was folding and sat on the edge of my bed. This was the moment I had been preparing for, but my hands were still shaking. It's not an error, Dad. Silence. Then, what do you mean it's not an error? I cancelled the transfers. I'm not paying for your insurance anymore. The silence stretched so long, I thought the call had dropped. When Dad finally spoke, his voice was completely different, cold and sharp. Jessica, what the hell do you think you're doing? We depend on that money. Your mother's medication costs $300 a month, and our insurance doesn't cover Dr. Peterson's visits. I know how much everything costs, Dad. I've been paying for it for 5 years. Then why would you just stop, without even discussing it with us? The irony wasn't lost on me. They wanted to discuss financial decisions now, but they hadn't thought to discuss excluding my children from family dinner. Because I realized something, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. For 5 years, I've been sending you nearly $1,000 a month, $48,000 total. And last week you told me there wasn't room at your table for my children because you love Michael's kids more. That's not... Jessica, you're twisting what your mother said. Am I? Because I recorded that conversation, Dad. I have Mum's exact words. We love those children more. Michael's kids are just easier, more fun to be around. Should I play it back for you? I was lying about recording it, but the threat landed exactly as I intended. Dad's breathing became audible on the other end of the line. Your mother was just stressed about the logistics. For 34 years, Dad, I've been the daughter who wasn't good enough, who wasn't the favourite, who had to earn love through money and sacrifice. And now you want my children to learn that same lesson? Jessica, you're being dramatic. We love you and the kids. No, you don't. You love my bank account. You love having a daughter who never says no, who always pays up, who accepts whatever scraps of attention you throw her way, but you don't love me enough to make space for my family at Thanksgiving. Dad's voice shifted again, becoming the tone he used when he was trying to manipulate me back into compliance. Honey, you know we're on a fixed income. Without your help, we can't afford Mom's medications. Do you want your mother to suffer because you're upset about one dinner? The guilt trip was so automatic, so practiced that I almost fell for it. Almost. Dad, Michael makes twice what I do. He drives a BMW and lives in a house that's worth 4 times mine. If you need financial help, ask your golden child. Michael has his own responsibilities. And I don't. I have 2 children, a mortgage, and college funds to worry about too. But somehow my responsibilities don't matter as much as his, do they? The call ended with Dad promising we'd work this out, and me feeling both empowered and terrified. I had just burned a bridge I'd spent my entire life trying to cross. Mark found me in the kitchen an hour later, stress-eating ice cream directly from the container. That bad? He asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. Dad called. They're panicking about the money. Good. Let them panic. Let them figure out what it's like to face consequences for their actions. I leaned back against his chest, grateful for his steady presence. What if I'm making a huge mistake? What if this destroys any chance of having a relationship with them? Jess, what relationship? You've been their ATM for years, and they still treat you like garbage. At least now you're a free ATM. That evening, we told Emma and Noah that we'd be having Thanksgiving at our house this year instead of Grandma and Grandpa's. Why? Emma asked, looking up from her homework. I had been dreading this question, but I'd decided on honesty, age-appropriate honesty. Because Grandma and Grandpa decided they only had room for Uncle Michael's family this year, I said. So we're going to have our own special Thanksgiving with people who are excited to spend time with us. Noah, ever the practical one, asked, Who's coming? Aunt Sarah and Uncle Mike, and maybe some other friends. We'll cook together and play games and make it really fun. Emma considered this for a moment. Will there be more dessert if it's just us? Mark laughed. Definitely more dessert. Then I like our plan better, she declared, returning to her math problems as if the matter was settled. If only adult problems were that simple to solve. The next few days passed quietly, but I could feel the storm building. On Friday, Mom called. Jessica, your father told me about your conversation. Which part? The part where he demanded money, or the part where I explained why I'm not sending it anymore? You're being very unfair, Mom said, her voice taking on that wounded tone she used when she wanted to make me feel guilty. We've always treated you and Michael equally. Mom, stop, just stop. We both know that's not true. I don't know what you want from us. The question hung in the air, and I realized I had an answer ready. I want you to admit it. I want you to admit that you've treated Michael as the golden child and me as the backup plan for my entire life. I want you to admit that you've taken my money while making it clear that my children don't matter as much as his. That's not. Last month, when Jackson had his soccer tournament, you drove 3 hours to watch him play. When Emma had her piano recital the same weekend, you said you were too tired to come. Last Christmas, you spent $300 on gifts for each of Michael's kids and $50 on mine. Should I keep going? Silence. I have the receipts, Mom. Literally, I have years of bank statements showing how much I've given you, and years of memories showing how little you've given back. Money isn't love, Jessica. You're right, it's not. So why have you been taking mine while withholding yours? The conversation ended with Mom crying and hanging up on me. I felt awful, but I also felt something I hadn't experienced in years, relief. I had finally said everything I'd been holding inside. Weekend passed and Monday brought another call, this time from Michael. Jess, what the hell is going on? Mom called me crying about some fight you had with them about money. Hi, Michael. Nice to hear from you too. It's been 6 months since we last talked? Don't be sarcastic. Mum says you cut off their insurance and stopped sending money. Is that true? Yes, it's true. Why would you do that? You know they can't afford their medical bills without help. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Michael, I've been sending them almost $1,000 a month for 5 years. $48,000. How much have you contributed? That's different. I have 3 kids to support. I have 2 kids to support, and I make less money than you do. But you've always been the one who handles their finances. Because you never offered. Because every time there was a problem, I stepped up and you stepped back. And now, when they've made it clear that my family doesn't matter as much as yours, you want me to keep paying for the privilege of being treated like garbage? Michael's tone shifted, becoming more aggressive. What are you talking about? They love your kids. Not as much as they love yours. Mom told me that herself when she uninvited us from Thanksgiving. They uninvited you? They said there wasn't room for my family, but your whole family plus Sarah's parents are invited. And when I asked why, Mom said they love your children more because they're more fun to be around. For the first time in the conversation, Michael was quiet. Look, I continued, if you think Mom and Dad need financial help, you're welcome to provide it. You make twice what I do, and you've never contributed a penny to their care. But I'm done being the family ATM, while my children get treated as second-class grandchildren. Jessica, you're overreacting. No, Michael, I'm finally reacting appropriately. I'm done subsidizing my own emotional abuse. I hung up on him too. That night, Mark and I sat on our back porch after the kids went to bed, sharing a bottle of wine and talking about everything that had happened. How are you feeling? He asked. Scared, relieved, guilty, angry, all at the same time. The guilt will fade, he said. You've been trained to feel guilty for standing up for yourself, but that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. What if they never forgive me? Then you'll know who they really are. And you'll also know that you protected Emma and Noah from learning to accept that kind of treatment. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the evening sounds of our neighborhood. For the first time in years, I wasn't mentally calculating how much money I needed to set aside for my parents' next crisis. I wasn't wondering when the next call would come asking for help. I wasn't trying to figure out how to earn their approval. I want to host Thanksgiving, I said suddenly. Really? Really, I want to cook a beautiful dinner and invite people who actually want to be here. I want Emma and Noah to see what it looks like when people are excited to spend time with them. Mark smiled. Then that's what we'll do. The next week, I threw myself into planning our first family Thanksgiving. I invited Sarah and her husband Mike, along with 2 other couples from our neighborhood whose kids were friends with Emma and Noah. I ordered a gorgeous turkey from the local butcher, planned a menu of all our favourite dishes, and bought decorations that reflected our style instead of trying to please anyone else. Emma and Noah got excited about helping with the preparations. We made place cards together, practiced folding napkins, and planned games for after dinner. Their enthusiasm was infectious, and I realized this was what I had been missing, the joy of celebrating with people who genuinely wanted to be there. On the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, my phone rang again. This time it was both parents on speakerphone. "Jessica?" Dad's voice was strained. "Well, we need to talk." "I'm listening." "The electric bill is overdue, and your mother's prescription ran out. We can't afford to refill it without help." I took a deep breath. "Have you asked Michael for help?" "He said he can't contribute right now. Something about unexpected car repairs." "Convenient. Jessica, please. Your mother is in pain without her medication." The old Jessica would have caved immediately. The old Jessica would have driven to the pharmacy and paid for the prescription herself, then figured out the electric bill too. But the new Jessica had learned something important. Their inability to manage their finances wasn't my emergency, especially when they had just excluded my children from family dinner. "Dad, I'm sorry Mom is in pain, but you made a choice when you decided Michael's family was more important than mine. That choice has consequences." "We never said his family was more important. You said you loved his children more. You said mine weren't as fun to be around. You made room for 7 people from his side of the family and no room for my 4 family members. What would you call that?" Mom's voice came through the speaker, shaky and small. "We made a mistake." "Yes, you did. A big one. Can't we work this out? Can't we move past this?" I thought about Emma asking if there would be more dessert at our Thanksgiving. I thought about Noah's excitement about making place cards. I thought about 34 years of trying to earn love that was freely given to my brother. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "I'm going to have a beautiful Thanksgiving with people who value my family. You're going to have your dinner with Michael's family, since they're the ones you prioritize. And maybe after you've experienced what it's like to depend on your golden child for a while, we can discuss what a healthy relationship between us might look like. Jessica, I'm not cutting you out of my life forever," I continued, "but I'm done being treated as less than. I'm done teaching my children that love is something you have to earn by giving money and accepting scraps. When you're ready to treat me and my family with the same respect and priority you show Michael and his family, call me." Until then, this conversation is over. I hung up and immediately turned off my phone. Mark appeared in the doorway. "How do you feel?" I thought about it for a moment. Free, terrified but free. Thursday morning dawned bright and crisp, perfect weather for our first independent Thanksgiving. Emma and Noah woke up excited, running downstairs in their matching outfits to see if they could help with anything. The house smelled like sage and butter and roasting turkey. Sarah arrived early to help with the side dishes, and we spent the morning cooking and laughing and telling stories. When the other guests arrived, the house filled with warmth and conversation and genuine happiness. As we sat down to dinner, I looked around the table at faces that were genuinely happy to be there. Emma and Noah were beaming as they showed off the place cards they'd made. Mark was carving the turkey with exaggerated ceremony that had everyone laughing. Sarah was telling a story that had the whole table in stitches. "Before we eat," I said, standing up with my wine glass, "I want to say something." The table quieted and all eyes turned to me. This year I learned something important about family. Family isn't just about who you're related to. It's about who shows up for you, who celebrates your victories, who makes room for you at their table, literally and figuratively. Thank you all for being our chosen family. "Here's here," Sarah called out, raising her glass. "To chosen family," everyone echoed. As we clinked glasses and began passing dishes around the table, my phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it quickly. A message from my mother. "Michael's family cancelled last minute. We're eating alone. I hope you're happy." I set the phone aside without responding and turned back to the table, where Emma was explaining to our neighbour's daughter how she'd made the turkey-shaped place cards. Noah was carefully serving himself mashed potatoes with the concentration of a surgeon. For the first time in my adult life, I was exactly where I belonged, with people who were genuinely happy I was there. The guilt was still there, lurking around the edges, but it was overwhelmed by something much stronger: peace. Later that evening, after our guests had gone home and the kids were in bed, Mark and I sat in our living room, surrounded by the happy chaos of a successful dinner party. "Any regrets?" he asked. I thought about my parents, sitting alone at their big dining room table, probably wondering where everything had gone wrong. I thought about Michael's family, who had apparently decided last minute that they had better things to do than spend Thanksgiving with grandparents who had always prioritised them. "No," I said, and I meant it. "No regrets." My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mum. "Can we please talk tomorrow?" I looked at the message for a long moment, then set the phone aside again. Tomorrow would bring its own decisions, its own conversations, its own challenges. Tonight, I was exactly where I wanted to be, with exactly who I wanted to be with. For the first time in my life, that was enough.